everyone. Good evening. We'll go ahead and get kicked off. Top of the hour. We got some great videos to take a look at and discuss tonight. Just wanted to kind of catch everybody up as you're coming in. Remember on Zoom, as you come in, it does not mute your microphone. So if you're just now coming into the meeting, make sure that you're muted as you come in. Keeps that background noise off. Daniel and I do our best to kind of mute things in the background as well. But just remember, as soon as you join, it does not mute you. So take a look at that as you're coming in. Again, like I said, a lot of good videos. We'll discuss some of those. Daniel's going to take us through those. Wanted to talk about a few things real quick. We just closed test 2 last night. Remember, test 1 is still open and available, and I can't encourage you more than taking test 1 as many times as you can. I think Coach Davis is probably the leader on test 1 right now. Steve, how many attempts did you get on test 1?
What's most interesting?
Well, I don't know, around 20.
Around 20. That's awesome, and that's the way to do it, though, guys. Is as you're coming in, taking test 1, getting familiar with test 1, take it as many times as you can. Just a reminder, there's 118 questions that we have in the test bank, and it pulls random 75 every time for test 1. So do it as many times as you can. See all the questions, get familiar with them, get familiar with how the rule book is laid out and what we're looking for there, so that we can apply those. On the mat moving forward. Again, test 1 is still open. You do have to have, a 76 passing score to be able to pass that, which is a requirement to get on the mat for us moving forward. So thanks everyone for joining that. Test 2 is used for, anybody can take test 2, but test 2 is used for postseason considerations for regionals and state. And test 2 did close last night on that. And so just wanted to show you something really quickly on test 2. Just for those of you to be aware of, here are the most missed questions on test 2 on that. And so 76% of people got this right. 24% of those who took test 2 missed it. So we had 133 correct out of 175 taking test 2. And the question is, the referee shall stop the match except when warning or penalizing the offensive wrestler for stalling or a technical violation when the defensive wrestler is on their feet, regardless of position, and another except when a 2-point stall is awarded. And we missed that 24% of the time on test 2. The next one is giving the wrong choice of position is always considered bad time. We had almost 23% of people miss that on that one. So let's talk about those real quick before we kick it over to Daniel. The first one, the referee shall stop the match except when warning or penalizing the offensive wrestler for stalling or a technical violation when the defensive wrestler is on their feet. The whole point of this, right, is to not stop the match while the defensive wrestler is on their feet, to not penalize that defensive wrestler and put them back down in a control situation. That control situation, when that bottom wrestler comes to the feet, we want to allow that to continue. Even if we have a stalling penalty, remember, we are stopping every top stalling except for this type of situation there, or even a technical violation as well. Then there's another except on there, except when a 2-point stall is awarded. That 2-point stalling will be stopped on the top stalling no matter what position they're on, and then given the choice on the restart to the defensive wrestler. Daniel, am I good there on that explanation? Great. Appreciate that. So again, I know that's kind of a wordy question. We didn't make it up. It's right out of the book on that. But again, I think that did throw a couple of people on that. Again, we missed it 24% for that on test 2. And giving the wrong wrestler choice of position is always considered bad time. This one's a little easier, and we want to make sure that we know this. That given the wrong wrestler choice of position is always considered bad time. It is not always considered bad time. It can be overdone if, for example, you give the wrong wrestler the choice in the second period and you figure it out halfway through the second period or going into the third period that you gave the wrong wrestler the choice. We just give it to the other wrestler. So if it is correctable, it is not bad time in that situation. Daniel, thumbs up. Pretty good am I good on that explanation too? And again, so those were the 2 questions that were missed kind of the most. I just wanted to show you what test 2 was looking like. We had 175 people take test 2 as of last night. And again, that was the requirements for for postseason events on that. So I'm going to turn that off and then kick it over to Daniel. Do we have any? Well, I don't want to open it up because I'm afraid we'll go down a rat hole. So if you have any questions or comments, please share them in the chat. We'll start to monitor that. We're up over 65 officials now on the call tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Daniel. He's got a couple of great videos and one that many of you recognized if you're on social media from last week. And again, if you're just joining the call, please mute your microphone as you come in. Thanks, Daniel. Go ahead.
All right, let me just get set up here. Give me just a minute. And should be able to see my PowerPoint, correct?
Gotcha.
All right. Okay. Just want to make sure that I can also monitor the chat and things.
I got your chat for you.
And polls as well. All right, good. Okay. Perfect. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. We got a lot of different videos to go into. You know, last couple meetings, we've kind of started with some of the more fundamentals of officiating, mostly rule changes as well. As we get further into the season, we want to start getting into some more, hairier situations. So we're gonna look at some interesting control situations. We're gonna talk about conduct on the mat as well. You know, how to handle certain coach conferences as well as unsportsmanlike conduct situations. And you have to excuse me, my voice is a little bit recovering right now. I've been dealing with illness throughout this weekend, so I may lean on others here to chime in a bit more than I normally can. It's going to be a little bit difficult to have any kind of discussion because of the large number. So please, if you got questions, just or comments, leave those into the chat, and we'll try to respond to them as they come up and are relevant. So we'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully we get through them all. I think those would be some interesting videos. So and if you're familiar with the format, we try to do polls as much as we can. So I'm going to show the video, and then I will poll the everybody here to see kind of where you guys would call this if you were the official. And so get ready for that to participate. It always helps us kind of gauge where we are as a group, and where clarification, where do we need to kind of drill down a bit more if needed, to make sure that we're all aligned on certain situations as best we can, right? So this first video, I'm told it kind of made for some interesting discussion online. So this got to me, and so I'm going to share it here, and we'll see if we can have some more discussion here. So here we go. We're towards the very end of the match here. The last takedown there. All right, I'm going to play it again. I also want to watch a little bit of what happens after this call. So we're on the edge of the mat here. We get a takedown on the edge. And the official calls unsportsmanlike conduct here. I'll show the poll, but let's keep watching this. Some conversations with coaches. All right. Okay. All right. Let's do the poll here and talk about it here. All right. Let's see. Okay, poll should be popping up on your screen now. Okay, still looking for some responses here. Just looking for a few more answers. All right. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end this poll. And I will share the results. Okay, so the choices here: unsportsmanlike conduct, 1 team point, which was essentially what the official called here.
I'm hurt. Keep going.
Yep. And then or it was unsportsmanlike 1 match point. We had 13% of you say that one. That was the minority here, but still 7 of us. And then about half, so most people, but still half the group, 50% said no call, no unsportsmanlike conduct here. So I think that, there's a couple things that's happening in this video. The first thing, let's before we get into whether this is an unsportsmanlike conduct or not, we got to understand the sequence of what happened here, right? And so if we are 16-4 and excuse me, and we get our takedown here, so we're 19-4, so that's a 15-point lead. So now we're tech fall, right? And so if we deem that the tossing of the headgear in this situation is unsportsmanlike conduct, we can't have a match point. And the reason why we can't have a match point, because the tech fall terminates wrestling. And we covered this a little bit when we talked about rules changes this year. So just understand that there's a sequence of events that happens that's important, and you need to follow the sequence of and call the match in the order in which they occurred. And in this case, we had the tech fall that terminates wrestling. What happens after this is after the match. So it would only be 1 team point. Want to talk about what the rule says on unsportsmanlike conduct. Certainly the rule says, it says that throwing the headgear is one of the things for unsportsmanlike conduct, right? One of the criteria in a list of many other things. So what you have to look at here is, is the official throwing the headgear. There's also a part in the casebook where it becomes actually pretty useful, because what's throwing the headgear? What about tossing the headgear? What if we toss it to a coach? What if we drop it on the mat? What if is that different than someone just throwing it into the stands or throwing it out of anger, right? And as an official, we have to obviously look at the casebook, understand these scenarios, but sometimes we have to make some judgments, right, as to whether this really fits that criteria of being unsportsmanlike in nature. And so it looks like there was about a third of us were still saying, unsportsmanlike conduct. I want to draw your attention to the casebook. So 742 situation D. Following the end of match procedure, wrestler A, who was defeated, is moving towards the team area. Wrestler A removes ear guards or any equipment, and A throws it into the crowd. B slams it to the floor, or C tosses it to the manager or teammate. Okay, and the ruling is in A and B, which are pretty clear cut, right? Our unsportsmanlike conduct and 1 team point will be deducted from the score of team A. There is no apparent violation in C, which is just tossing it to a manager or teammate. But then we get further even clarification here in the comment. It says the referee must exercise sound judgment in determining whether acts such as those described in the foregoing constitute unsportsmanlike conduct. So you got to use some judgment here, right? Is this unsportsmanlike? Throwing the ear guards or any equipment is an intentional act and constitutes unsportsmanlike conduct. Tossing the ear guards or any equipment to a teammate or manager or dropping it to the floor near the team bench would not be considered unsportsmanlike conduct. So, I think when I go back and watch this video, and we can do that. Oh, well, the one thing I'll do too before we move on is, there's a couple key words here. So you're gonna have to use judgment, right? You're gonna have to exercise judgment on whether this is an unsportsmanlike act. You also have to, there's some wording in the casebook just in general, not about this rule, but it's about many rules in general, that the referee must be firm in enforcing the letter and spirit of the rule, right? So in your judgment, you have to think about what's the spirit of the rule here too, that I think plays a factor in whether what we just witnessed is truly unsportsman. So I'm just going to back up, whatever you think of the mannerisms here. I mean, the red wrestler clearly is the one who won here. We can't zoom out entirely, but we do later in the video see that his team is on that side of the mat, so that's likely where the ear guards are going. So if it's me on the mat trying to understand again the spirit of the rule and the nature of unsportsmanlike behavior, and from my perception, I don't think I have anything that's unsportsmanlike.
Hey, Daniel.
Yeah.
This happened, exact situation with me last year at the state tournament, and the guy from Klein he was excited because he won, because he lost to him at regionals, and he was excited that he won, and he took his headgear off and threw it to his coach. I mean, he didn't throw it to his coach, but on the floor towards his coaches, and I was forced, and I'm going to say forced, to give the team unsportsmanlike conduct and take 1 point away because he threw his headgear towards his coaches. So you're saying now that he shouldn't have been penalized, or the team shouldn't have been penalized for throwing his headgear to the side?
Yeah, I think what I'm saying, Latrell, is, and again, I didn't see it, but correct. I'm saying that we have to make a couple of judgments here, right? One is there's semantics between tossing and throwing, right? And then we have casebook, right, criteria that spells out that giving it to a coach, giving it to a teammate, or dropping it towards the bench, towards wrestlers, right, that that there's a room for it, right? So throwing and chucking, that's a whole different thing. But if he's trying to get his headgear to a coach or to a teammate, I've got no issue with that. And I think we need to, and again, what is the perception of everybody else? Do we think that, again, in the spirit of the rule here, do we think that this is an act of being unsportsmanlike, right? Is this demeaning to the other wrestler? Is this taunting? Is this excessive celebration? And I don't think it meets any of that criteria. Rex, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Let me add.
Go ahead, Latrell. Go ahead. You first, Latrell.
Okay. Because and the reason why I was against doing it that way, because a year before, a young man did something. He was excited, so it was kind of like an he celebrated, but it was at the state tournament, and I had one of the evaluators. I called unsportsmanlike conduct, and one of the evaluators said, "Man, why'd you call unsportsmanlike conduct? I mean, this guy worked hard to make it to the state tournament, and he placed third. Why would you give him a unsportsmanlike?" And I was like, well, because the rules said we're supposed to, and then I wound up taking it away because I was confused. And so the following year, the guy tosses his headgear because he's excited about taking first place. And then I get penalized, not penalized, but I get forced to give an unsportsmanlike conduct just because he threw his headgear to the side. And so it was frustrating to me at that point because I didn't understand. And then at the beginning of the tournament, we never addressed if we were going to call excessive celebration as unsportsmanlike, because we've allowed wrestlers to do backflips. We've allowed wrestlers to throw their coach because they won the tournament. And we've never said anything about that. We said that, you know, state tournament, it's a little bit of it is allowed. So I was just frustrated at the moment because I didn't understand. 1 year we're okay, the next year we're not, but we never said anything in the middle.
Well, yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not sure. I'll give you my opinion if I get to see the video of your match, but I wasn't sure where that came from to determine but it's just going to be my opinion, right? I don't know where that came from. That's the first I've heard of it, Luttrell. But to Daniel's point on this, if it's a toss, according to the rule, if it's a toss, it's not called unsportsmanlike conduct. Excessive celebrations, right, are there's actually a slide last year, and it happened at the state tournament, obviously, that a wrestler did a celebratory backflip after his win, and that was unsportsmanlike conduct and needed to be called because again, it was actually on a slide of the slide deck last year. So those are caveats to that. Everything else, I guess, gets to be determined on what excessive is on celebration, right? And so that's something we'll definitely make a point of, Luttrell, at the state tournament this year to talk about. Hey, this year let's call it by the book on what the book says is unsportsmanlike conduct, and that's what I anticipate the direction will be. Yeah, no, that's fair. Daniel, I'm sorry, Daniel, you were going here. Could you run it one more time? And the other part of this, the other fun part of this to think about is go ahead and rewind it a little bit further, Daniel. Everybody, take a look at the team score down at the bottom. Red's losing by 4 points here, and blue is up by 4 points. And so this tech fall obviously gives you 5 team points, right? So that those 5 team points make it 28-27, the red team. This unsportsmanlike conduct penalty now makes it 27-27. And the outcome of that, due to criteria, goes to the blue team. The blue team won the duel on dual meet criteria based on the fact that they were tied because the unsportsmanlike conduct brought it back to a tie match. And so that's why this has caused such a controversy. And there were some other things too, that the lead official was a state champion for the blue team back when he wrestled and things like that. So there's a whole lot of things going on in this video besides just the tossing of that headgear. But to Daniel's point, the toss of the headgear, according to the rule that he showed you, is not penalized as unsportsmanlike conduct, and that's what we want to try to show here. Was the wording of that rule. Daniel, anything else on that?
That's it. I mean, the thing is that I feel for the Trail's comments on some of the ambiguity that maybe there's been. And I think part of that is because we often get caught up a little bit too much in the letter of certain rules. And it is our job to enforce the letter of the rule, but also the spirit of the rule. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to have to make a judgment call in some cases. And in this case, it requires a judgment. Do we have a toss that's unsportsmanlike, and a throw that's unsportsmanlike? It has to be a throw, and it has to be, unsportsmanlike. And I don't think it's either of those are meeting the criteria. Now, arguably, some people can be stricter and would consider a toss versus a throw, but given the context of everything we know about who the winner is, where we are in the match, where the headgear ended up, being with the team. And that it wasn't, a throw, that it was tossed towards the team. I think you got to think of multiple things when you make that judgment. The only other thing I was going to show in this video, which we don't have to get too much into, is just kind of bench decorum. As an official getting control of the match, especially as things get heated, as Rex pointed out, this team point now, makes a difference. So now we have coaches coming from the side of the mat, right, approaching the mat, and we have officials having conversations with those coaches on the side of the mat, right? And luckily, the assistant officials coming up here to get in between those wrestlers. That's good. But when it's a heated moment, right? Where's the table here, right? The table is right in front of these wrestlers here. If you make a controversial call and then you start stepping off and start having sideline conversations before you even raised hands, coaches on the side, you're going to lose control of that mat, right? And that gives permission for the other coaches to come from the side. And now you got people coming in from all angles. There's a conversation about this call. That's what the coaches table is for. Right? And so, sure, they're going to argue. And if I'm the coach, I'm going to argue in this situation for sure, or ask for clarification what's going on. That conversation can happen at the table, and that's how you maintain control and not let things get out of hand on this mat.
Hey, Daniel.
Yeah.
Do me a favor. Go back to the video and just go to the part where the kid in red who wins tosses his headgear. Just go to that point for a second, because this is what people need to focus on here. Go back just a little bit there. And I'll talk to this from the Federation standpoint. Yeah, let it play here, please. So, look at this. I mean, is there intent there? No. Is he trying to show anybody up? No. He's simply tossing the headgear over to his bench, right? Don't get lost in any other weeds. It's not material, right? There's nothing unsportsmanlike about this call. This official is getting roasted nationwide because of that call, right? There's two things that really have to come into play here, and this is for everybody on this call. You have to know the rules, right? Even if stuff doesn't come up very often, it's still not an excuse for us to not know those rules. So, Daniel's, politely placed the piece in the casebook up here. The casebook is probably your best resource, because it gets a little bit deeper into what the rules are. Secondly, we've got to use some common sense here. And I realize common sense is a broad term and it's different for a lot of people, but try to use your best common sense in these situations. So, this was a huge call. I mean, these are two powerhouse schools in Pennsylvania, and that is a heated rivalry. And a win there is huge for either school. And for that dual meet to get finished the way it did is nothing but a black eye, and it's a black eye on the official. So put it this way, we don't want to make the papers, we don't want to make social media, we don't want to make the internet. That should be our goal every time we walk on and off the mat.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. It's a good thing to point out. Just make sure we know the rule, like you said, know the rule, like Daniel said too, and be familiar with the rules so that we can follow that and not allow the heat of the match or whatever to overtake that, because it can escalate pretty quickly, and you can kind of see the result of that. So. Now, good discussion and good feedback. I'm glad you showed that. Dan, I know you got a handful of others. Let's see how many we can whip out.
Yep. All right. So speaking of having conversations at the table. So this is not a poll. Just want to get your feedback on. Hey, if that's the only thing that. Okay. One more time. And again, it's not a poll, it's more a grading here on how this referee handles a coach conference.
If you can, type in the chat any comments you have. I'll kind of read them off to Daniel as we go. Confrontational, looks confrontational. Personal space, not listening, confrontational. Daniel, that's most of what you're getting in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, so before we even get to the table, right, there's already a conversation. There's already words coming out of the referee's mouth, right? So on the way, we have an opinion, we're talking, we're responding. And I'm sure it sounds like the chat's talking about body language, right? So, I mean, even if this was a pleasant conversation, I mean, look at how we're standing here. What is being communicated by the posturing of this official, right? It's very confrontational in the way he's standing and the way he's talking, right? And so we need to talk about, you know, better ways to have this conversation with the coach. And again, not coming with our thoughts and our reactions out of a holster, right, as we get to the table. You know, so I'm not sure what this coach says, right? We don't have the audio here, so he hits him with an unsportsmanlike. You know, unless, you know, maybe he said something very, very unsportsmanlike, right? Hopefully, you know, that would warrant an unsportsmanlike conduct. But if it's a simple indicating displeasure, right, or questioning the judgment of the call, you know, now we're talking about a misconduct that should be given because we're at the table, right? We don't know what was said, but that's just an important reminder of what's happening there. So you just wanted to show this video as a reminder to kind of check ourselves as we have those conversations at the table with coaches. And it involves listening more, right? As we approach, we need to be not confrontational. We need to become ready with our response. We need to become ready to listen, because the coach has the opportunity to come to the table and ask for clarification. That is within their right. And so, you know, maybe there's context before this, right, that happened that we don't see and we don't understand that led up to this. So, you know, this isn't talking bad of this official or anything, right? But it's just being cognizant of how we approach the table is important. It starts as soon as we see that the coach come to the table. Our walk to the table we're already sending a message. And then as we get there, it's important that we're not going face to face, you know, in their space, right? We need to allow for space. I try to get side to side as best as I can. So my back is facing away from the audience, but my shoulder is on the side of the coach. I have hands down and usually in front, and I'm in a listening stance, right? And then you allow the opportunity for the coach to ask his question or to say what he needs to say, and then respond accordingly, right? And then you have your opportunity, whether it's a misconduct, right, or it's clarification that you give, or if it's an extreme case, it's unsportsmanlike conduct. What else? Anything from the chat I need to cover, Rex, or anybody else?
Yeah, nothing. There were a couple of comments on the coach's demeanor. You know, did not look unsportsmanlike, and we're not sure what the coach said there, but he was definitely had the calmest demeanor. And a couple of things, Daniel, like to what you said. Very, very good point. Another suggestion too: if you're going to penalize a coach, try to also work on the mechanic of stepping back from the table. It takes a lot of the confrontation out of it. If you're going to go misconduct or unsportsmanlike, take a few steps back out toward the middle of the mat. You can see as soon as the official calls unsportsmanlike, he's still one step away from the coach, and that's really just confrontational. Get back on the mat a little bit, get away, try to take some heat out of it as much as you can. As you penalize, you can see the arm goes out as soon as the coach turns, and you know, step away from a little bit just to try to take the heat out of that. We've got to be the most professional in the gym at all times and use that. Great video.
All right. Okay, let's get into some situations. We've gone through some of these similar situations in our local chapter. This was a discussion recently on some NCAA webinars, but these situations we're seeing all of the time. So I think it'd be relevant if we covered it here at a state level. So this will be a poll as well. So we'll play it. It's a pretty quick situation. Okay, we're starting in neutral. Red shoots. Deep in on the legs here. Okay, again, we only have the angle from this side, but want to know what you get? We'll show it again. All right, well, let's launch a poll here. Of course, I'll play it while the poll launches again. Okay, you should get a poll here now. Getting a lot of responses in. All right, just need a few more. Now, I should point out we've got the leg hooked. Can't see it from this side, but he does kind of hook around and gets that leg a little bit. Top wrestler there, green. All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, pretty overwhelming consensus here. Good news, no one said 2 takedown, so that's good. We've got 93 or about 90% of us saying no control, still neutral. We do have a few of us who are saying 3. And I'm curious, in the chat, if you want to kind of tell me what you're looking for here to give control or not. What's lacking here? It looks like we're all pretty well aligned. What sort of things do we need to look for here for there to be control that's not here? Even though we can't see, let's say he's got that leg hooked. Does that factor in?
No evidence of hip superiority.
Looking at hip superiority. Okay, good.
All right, if you can, keep adding them to the chat. Don't climb, didn't climb up, needs to cut across the hip or secure both legs, restraining power, control of hips.
What about a leg pass? You got to get past the leg pass situation first before you can start really looking at those other items, guys. Has he beat the kid's right shoulder?
Yep. So looking at the positioning there of where red is up on that leg. His shoulder in position with green's leg, right? Good. All right, I want to keep this discussion going because I got a couple others that are related. So I'm going to go to the next one, and we'll keep going on this same theme. So similar situation, okay? Okay, now in this one, I want you to watch what the referee gives and when the referee gives it. And then I'll give you a poll and let me know how you would score it. So red goes in for shot here, gets around, hooks the leg. Here is when the official calls 3, okay? For takedown. All right, so I'm going to launch this poll and tell me if this situation differs or no from what we saw before and why. Let me go back here. Okay.
And share your comments in the chat.
So polls up. How do you score this? Do you score this 3 takedown basically when the ref gave it? Do you have it later, or do you still have neutral?
Take down once the wrestler's down. Waited until he was on his belly. After he broke the wrestler down. controlled both legs and hips, hip to hip. After the hips are broken down, when he was down on his belly, greens on the mat, leg lace, controlled both legs.
All right. I'm going to end the poll here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So this one, a little bit more split on our responses here. We've got 60% of us saying that we're calling 3 takedown, but much later, or at least later after the ref called it. But we've got about 20 of us, 30% saying that you're calling 3 at the same time the referee called it, which is essentially here, right? Even maybe a little bit before this here. So let me for the majority here, why for the 60% of us do you not have control here yet? Most of us say this is not quite where we would call it. Why not?
Jack said he would have called it. Arm wasn't defeated.
Folks, you still gotta make sure that the arm or the shoulder is defeated in these situations. You can have everything on the backside, but if you're still in a potential leg pass situation, it's best to let it burn. And if you don't, God love you.
You got to just keep throwing those in the chat. He isn't behind the armpits. Control even without the far leg. Let it burn. Looks like 3 there. Hands still locked around the leg. Can pass the leg. Hold the call. Red's close, but he was lower, and it's hard to see what's happening in front. Yeah, that's a good point, too, on the angles.
Yeah. So, I think it is difficult when I kind of stopped here. It does switch around. We can't see the position of the leg pass and the shoulder, but it does look like he's kind of gotten past the shoulder here. If we turn around, we go up front. But when I'm looking, oops, sorry about this. No one wants to see my
I do.
My work emails. That's not going to be exciting for anybody.
The new Astro Stadium sponsor.
Yeah, that's right. We go back here. Sorry about that.
Sweet
I
tickets.
got stalling on Daniel right now. I got stalling on Daniel.
All right. So but and we'll talk more criteria here in just a minute. When we're here, not a lot of hip superiority, and I think that in combination, I don't know if you could truly argue restraining power in that position, and also considering how we got here as well. When he gets in this position, what happens from here? Not a whole lot until we get broken down. And I think that was mentioned in the chat here. Once we're broken down, now we're really demonstrating a lot more restraining power and control on the mat. So, before that, there's a few things we need to look for when we talk about positioning on those leg pass. We need to look at they cleared the shoulder. Is there hip superiority? Is there restraining power? And it's going to come down to, we've seen this picture in the rule book, or these pictures, right? And I'm just trying to kind of summarize all of the various ways. It's important that these are situations that require judgment, right? Where there could be a takedown, and there's certain defenses that are made to prevent a takedown. And the rule book, tells us that these defenses don't necessarily stop the takedown. And a lot of the things that we're looking at are this middle row here. So this middle left and this middle picture here. And I added my own text here. This isn't from the rule book, right? But you know, in the middle left there, right? The defensive wrestler is off their base and is hip to hip. So, you know, that's a more clear cut where the top wrestler hasn't cleared that leg, but they have hip control, hip superiority. And with the wrestler being broken down, they're able to demonstrate, you know, restraining power. Same thing for the middle. The middle one's also a little bit tricky because it's hard to see whether there's hip position or hip superiority, but that's one of the things you want to look for. And if you look at that previous video, it wasn't really that close. You know, that top wrestler had his hips pretty well below the other wrestler there. It wasn't until they really get broken down to where we can see some version of restraining power. So, you know, this is just a guide of some things. We'll cover another one of these scenarios here. And just remember, right, for there to control, there has to be restraining power or control, right? It has to be down on the mat, has to be in bounds, and it has to be beyond reaction time. You have to have all four of those for there to be a takedown situation, right? Can't just be 3 of the 4 or just one. All 4 of those things have to be at play. So similar to one of these pictures here, I'm going to play it. This should be a pretty quick one. All right, play it again. We're neutral. Red shoots in. Here we go. All right, I'm going to do a poll. I'll play the video at the same time, but you got the polls up. And, you know, one thing that we don't have the advantage of seeing is the head position as well from this angle of the gray singlet. May or may not be relevant here. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So we've got 72% of the group here saying 3 takedown. Got a few of us saying 3 takedown and 1 technical violation. And then, you know, the rest of us saying no control.
Glide.
So who wants to, you know, if in the chat, let's hear from the minority here. Why no control? What are you looking for that's not present here? Then don't be shy here.
Angel says his hands didn't lock beyond reaction time around the waist.
I guess he's referring to probably technical violation there, potentially, if there's control. That's where you know, reaction time might be.
Yeah, Na says the shooter seems more concerned about getting rolled or thrown. Red's head is buried, still struggling to figure out what grip he wants.
So
Okay.
Daniel and Rex, can I talk through this one a little bit? Because we've actually covered this quite a bit at the NCAA level, and we're seeing it quite a bit.
Does the head position make a factor here of gray singlet? I think it does.
There's no takedown because the official didn't award the 3.
Right. Hey, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead. I just wanted to, in your mind, does the head position matter? What position of the bottom wrestler matters here?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few things that that we're looking for in these, we call them chest wrap situations. So let the video play out just a little bit, and I'll kind of tell you when to stop it and give us some good talking points. We'll let it burn for just a little bit. So about right. Let it keep going for just a second. Right there, stop. Okay, so the defending wrestler, the one with his back to us. So he has what's called a chest wrap. So he's under both arms of the attacking wrestler and he's locked up somewhere in their chest area. That is a hell of a defensive maneuver. The other thing that we're looking at too is look at the defending wrestler's left foot. That foot is buried in the mat, correct? So the sole of the shoe is down in the mat. Okay. So when you see the shoe like that, the defending wrestler has leverage off that leg to hit a roll off the chest wrap. And so, you look at that, you look at the other thing, the attacking wrestler's head is pretty much buried, right?
So
And that's partly because of that. That's the benefit of a pretty nasty chest wrap that this guy's got thrown on him.
Yeah.
So he's got him buried down there, right? So let this stuff play out. The things that you're looking for when you get into, a shot like this in a chest wrap situation is it's not an immediate takedown by any means. Look at the defending wrestlers' soles of their shoes, right? If you can see the soles of those shoes and they're perpendicular to the mat, that's a sign that says, hey, we may have a takedown here. The other thing too is if the attacking wrestler can get their head out, so it's not buried, now he's in a situation where he can drive into the defending wrestler and pretty much secure that takedown. When those things happen, that's going to neutralize that chest wrap, generally speaking. Does that make sense to everybody? And trust me, this is absolutely a feel call on the mat. And for those of you that have been on the mat for a while and you've seen some pretty high level wrestling, you have a better sense of feel. And these chest wrap situations are absolutely about feel. But the items that I shared with you, the things to look at, defender's feet, attacker's head. Are they scooting on one hip versus both hips, meaning the defending wrestler?
Yeah, that was the third thing, for head position buried, up on the sole, leaning onto one side of the hip, not improving.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty sure that the official in that situation that we just saw right there had not awarded a takedown because it wasn't there yet. And that's what we've been taught at the college level. So again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, patience. Patience is a huge, huge, huge behavior pattern for really good officials.
And if you look at this top left photo going back, right? So and I saw it in the chat, right? Body lock does not always stop the takedown. Well, yeah, that's true. That's that top left picture, right? But look at that positioning, which is a bit different, which is around both legs, head to the side, soles up, right? They're off the mat. So, it's one of those control is felt situations for sure. But I think as we talk through this, there's some different things we can start looking for, right? And it's understanding head positioning, it's understanding how this chest wrap's being utilized and what defenses, right, that bottom wrestler has in terms of rolling and with their foot positioning. which, and are those defenses working, right? And so far throughout this whole sequence, they were. Didn't really progress from there. So that's why I think this is a still neutral situation. And if it's the end of the period, time runs out, we've got nothing. Tough call, really tough call.
Yeah. No, good one, Daniel. Good points, and appreciate the like Dan was saying, a lot of the hints there, especially at looking at the feet of the underneath wrestler on there. Does he have his feet buried in the mat, still able to defend, or are his soles up and he's got no defense there? So a lot of things there to look at. And again, you're just in no hurry, right? We're in no hurry. Go ahead, Daniel.
All right, here we go. Watch carefully.
Does a great job. Another roll here, man.
Okay, one more time. Okay, here's a poll. See anything? Let's go ahead and launch, maybe. Already shared those results. Okay, let's go back here, sorry. Okay, need a few more poll responses. Got about 35 of you. Try to get those in. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in poll. And the results showing here. Okay, we got most of us saying got nothing here. What's going on? We got 21% saying stalling top. A couple of us went stalling bottom. We've got 13% saying illegal maneuver on top. What are people saying?
Bottom seeking to get out of bounds, try to get a restart, double leg kickback, illegal kickback.
So when he takes a step up right here, his back foot comes up too, right? Comes up. Looks like he wants to do a kickback, but his left foot comes down. That's what I'm seeing on that part on the top man.
All right, continue to share in the chat if you got more. Is that what he tried? Maybe it was a kickback.
Well, I'm trying to pause it here.
And asking to talk through a kickback, Daniel, also.
Yep. And I apologize for whatever reason. It doesn't like me pausing, so we're going to do it this way here. Okay. What we got here? Clean, good, kickback, not good.
I think a lot of the people on the call nailed this one, which I'm happy to see.
Yep.
So hold on. Here's a comment in the chat, and this is good. I don't see an intentional kickback. There's nothing in the rule book that says you have to have intent.
Yeah, and we'll talk through the criteria there, Daniel, on that kickback. A couple asking those.
Yeah. So what's a kickback, and why or why not does this? If I'm freeze framing here, how come this is not or a kickback, or is it kickback?
Anybody
We
want
out
to
intent doesn't really matter, right? Intent, you know, if we intend to do a full Nelson or not, right? It's still full Nelson.
or a bite?
It's when you kick the back of the legs of the defending wrestler to bring him back down to the mat.
There's actually two versions of a cutback or a kickback that are in the rule book. This is probably the more common at the high school level that's seen and discussed, but there's another one. And I'll get some video to Daniel that he can get for maybe one of the next calls.
Yeah, so we've got to be very careful with these. We're starting to see this a lot more, and in fact, when I was evaluating a wrestler at the last tournament, we had a very similar but a little bit more of a clear-cut kickback. It happens in less than a second often, right? And so if you look at the rule book, it's when, you know, that back wrestler, you know, takes the feet, gets behind both of the calves, leaves the mat, and is pulling. That's one way, and is you know, pulling the wrestler back, and that's a kickback. And we're you know, we're just about here with certainly the left leg. We got the other leg off the mat as well. Both legs are off the mat here, and it's happening very, very quickly. And you know, it is a point of emphasis this year to make sure that we, you know, we stop illegal moves and that we recognize them, because, you know, it could really cause an injury. And so that, you know, these double leg kickbacks, I'm seeing them more and more, and we've just got to make sure that we're looking out for them.
So, hey, Daniel, yeah, let that play for a second, and then freeze frame it back where you had it. It's a good talking point, because there's a couple things that I think are important for the group to learn a little bit more about. So let's get to that point here. Right. Yeah, almost right there. Yeah. Go back about half second. That's good. Okay, so
What are you doing?
one thing I'm going to talk about, this is two-man mechanics. So the lead official is off to our left in the screen, right? The assistant official is down in the near corner. So when you work two-person mechanics, this is where we want to be, especially in this line situation. Now, who has the better vantage point to see this type of action? Is it the assistant referee, or is it the lead official?
AR.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely AR.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure in this match, the AR didn't call it. And I will tell you, because I've seen these things happen so fast on a college mat, and thank God, more times than not, we've got video review, because you need video review in these situations, because this stuff happens lightning quick, especially this one. So, I mean, the offensive wrestler leaves his feet and kicks the back of the defensive wrestler's legs, right? That, by definition, is an illegal kickback. Now, somebody else asked the question, does it have to be successful for it to be illegal? No, it does not. That action is what's illegal. So, and do you need both feet or knees to make contact with the defensive wrestler in this situation? No, you don't. You can justify that call very easily and said, top wrestler left his feet, went back into the back of the legs of the defensive wrestler. Coach, that is by definition an illegal kickback. And that's it. So hopefully that gives a little bit more color to some of the questions that were coming up in chat, because this is good. I mean, this is one that at the high school level, there's a big opportunity for us to get better, not just in Texas, but nationwide. because there's a lot of high school officials around the country that don't know this one, and this is the more obvious of the kickback situations or the cutback situations. But there's a lot of other stuff that happens that would be in the high school rule book. It's called a leg block.
Yeah,
Those are a little bit different than this.
here's a similar.
That's an interesting thing about college wrestling, man. The parity is there, and I'm going to be real.
So he's got a broomstick in there. Broomstick's good.
College wrestling, man.
Right.
The parity is there, and
Yeah. Okay. So if you can go back and freeze frame it where he's got the broomstick in and his other foot is off the mat. Right there. That's close enough. Okay. So we refer to this as the broomstick, right? So he's got a leg in, essentially, right? Top wrestler's got a leg in. He's using his leg that is in, i.e. the broomstick is what we call it. He's using that for leverage to take the defensive wrestler back. If you notice the offensive wrestler's left leg, it's free, it's away from the defending wrestler, it doesn't come into contact with the defensive wrestler. If that free leg comes into contact with the defensive wrestler in the legs, then you've got a cutback situation. In this situation, when you watch this play out, the offensive wrestler is able to collapse the defensive wrestler down by using just the broomstick leg only. That free foot never comes into contact with the defensive wrestler. So in this situation, we'd be fine. There's no reason to make a call here. This is just good wrestling, so forth, so on.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Anything you got additional to
That's
that
the
on
voice.
contact?
Sorry, was that Rex?
Yeah, just seeing if you had anything additional on that rear contact with that leg in.
Yeah, that was the key. Is we were tempted to give it because this left leg comes off the mat, and there's similar kickbacks when we talk about double leg kickbacks. And I wish I had my other video where you can also do it where you're using one leg to kick back both legs, and both legs leave the mat. And this looks like it starts to look like it could be that. And if that's what I was going to say, is if that left leg comes in contact with the other leg in the calf or the right behind the calf, well, now we're just using 2 feet coming off the mat, right, to kick back both legs. So, but that leg does not, even though it comes off the mat, it doesn't come behind the leg. So we're just, we're in a different position than what would be.
Daniel, here's one thing I'll point out too. We as officials, you look to see if the offensive wrestler comes off the mat with both feet, right? But that in itself does not automatically mean that we are in an illegal move situation. And I think a lot of coaches and even some officials get confused by that. So the offensive wrestler can leave their feet. That in itself is not illegal. It's what they do with those feet that could make it an illegal situation.
Yep.
Hey, Daniel, go ahead. We're
at the end, right?
Okay.
Right, because we were supposed to just go till 8.
Yeah, go. I mean, if you got one more, see if we can squeeze it in.
Yeah, we'll squeeze in one more. We'll leave the rest of the videos for later. This one's towards the end here. Just let me know what issues you've got here. All right, I'm gonna play it again, and then I will do one more poll to close it out here tonight. So red's on top. Official calls locked hands. All right, here's a poll. coming up now.
Remember to share your comments in the chat if you can. Share your comments in the chat. Lots of free moves, Daniel. Questions on why he didn't stop it?
Looks like it's going to be a close match for third period. 1-0, Reds up.
Somebody.
All right, we've got all 50. We've got all the responses in here for the most part. We're at about close to 60 here, so I'll go ahead and close it out. All right, so we've got the options were. I only gave you 3 options here. 1 point technical violation for red locked hands plus 1 point escape, which is basically what the official gave here on this video. It looks like 48%. That was the most common answer here. And then we've got, it's kind of split though, about 41% say only 1 technical violation on red for locked hands. And then we've got just a few of us who said no technical violation, let it continue, 1 point escape. So let's break this down. Let's see if we can. Looks like most of us agree that there is locked hands. There was only a few of us who said no. The hands are locked here. And if you've been around for a while, you will remember that there was a time where there was like a caveat about whether the hand was bearing the weight and all of that stuff. That rule went away, I think, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago at least. So now if we've got, you know, hands locked and we've got this, we've got a hand that's touching the mat beyond reaction time. Okay, so hands are locked, hand gets here, and then comes down. I think we've got locked hands. I think that's pretty clear cut in my mind. I think we're beyond reaction time with the hand there, and then, you know, continues to use that lock to bring him down to the mat here, if you look, right? And then he lets go. So we're definitely locked hands, right? But what we have to remember is, why should this continue any longer? Is there quote unquote a free move?
No such thing. Only if he was in the middle of standing up or an escape or attempting to escape, you let it play out. If not, blow the whistle dead.
Right. So, Roberto, at what point would you call it?
As soon as his butt went back down to the mat.
So he calls locked hands here. Boom.
There.
There.
I would have stopped right there.
Yeah. So now what do we do? You're the official. I'm the assistant. I tell you, and should have stopped it. What do we have on our hands? How do we fix it? Can we fix it?
Bad time.
Okay. So if we supposed to stop it and we don't, then we've got bad time, which means everything that happens after, which is including the escape, all of that is voided, right? And then also including any time that happened after. So remember, there really is no free move, guys. When we recognize, if we were in the middle of a stand-up like we are here, and we've got locked hands and that hand's on the mat, and then we call locked hands, and that bottom wrestler is successful to standing up, right? This is the middle of a stand-up. Well, now we're in a different situation, right? We can let that play out because we're in a stand-up situation. It goes back to the test 2 scenario, the most missed question, right? Which was, you know, you're not going to stop it for a technical violation if the defensive wrestler comes to his feet. But once we call locked hands, and we return back down to the mat, we have to stop it. As soon as that move is completed, we stop that situation immediately. Otherwise, we have bad time.
Hey guys, I've got a quick question. It's just killing me. If I've got a kid, he's deliberately dropping down to a knee to entice the top man to lock hands, that's baiting and that's unsportsmanlike. Is this not the same spirit of the rule here, where this bottom man's deliberately dropping that hand to try to create the locked hand scenario?
It's a good question, Stephen. I think the ruling is repeatedly.
It is. I mean,
So-
Steve, it's a good question. I mean, I think if you look at this, you've got kids that are just, this is normal action, right? And so I think you're going to be a little bit more lenient in that type of a situation. When you see a baiting situation, it's pretty obvious. Normally the bottom wrestler is going to look up at the official, drop to a knee or go to hands, and then they're going to look at you and make a call. And if this happens and you're an official and it's so egregious with what I just explained happens on the mat, stop the match, call timeout, tell the bottom wrestler, you do that again, it will be immediately considered unsportsmanlike conduct, because otherwise we're going to end up penalizing the top wrestler for purposeful actions that which caused locked hands, if that makes sense.
It
Now,
does.
you may get chewed a little bit by a coach, and if you do, feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to make a phone call to that coach.
Yeah, I had one this weekend, and it was very obvious, and it was not a knee,
Yeah.
it was a hand, and I did exactly that and didn't catch any feedback, but I wanted to be clear about it.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative is if it's that egregious, hell, hit the bottom kid for unsportsmanlike.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Dan.
Yes.
When you were going over that broomstick thing, my system locked up and I didn't catch but your last few words of that broomstick, and I didn't really catch what that information. Sorry about that, but it just locked up, and then you came back when you were finishing. So
Oh, no problem. Hey, so Conrad, I tell you what, feel free to give me a call anytime this week, and I'm happy to visit with you and go through
right.
that broomstick situation.
We can also post that out on the forum and chat about it there. I think it'd be great to have the commentary there so that people could look up the video and slow it down and see some of the back and forth there. I think that'd be a great place to share it if we could do that as well.
all right.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to put this a reminder, guys, because it's we hear the word free move thrown out a lot and understand that there's not, and the stakes are high, right? And it's been like this is a state finals match in Utah, I believe, a few years ago. It's tied up, and we've had similar situations at the state tournament where there's been technical violations where things should have been stopped, and so this is just one of those reminders where we need to understand what bad time is, understand reaction time, understand when we stop, if we're mid move and versus when we're not. So, just keep that in mind, as you're officiating your event. So, my apologies. We had a lot to go over today. We'll save some of these videos for the next ones. We got some good things on stalemates and stalling, and that we'll cover if we've got some time, but I appreciate everybody's participation and all the comments and questions and everybody chiming in. So,
Thanks so much.
I didn't eat in front of you this time.
Great videos, and we'll share some of those. Again, guys, use the forum. If you have videos and comments, use the forum. Let's chat about them out there. We can play them out there and comment them on there. I think it's a great tool for us to be able to log those and see what other people think about it as well. Daniel, thanks for putting these together. As always, fantastic. So look for everybody to get back on our next call. And as we go through the holidays, happy holidays to you. Please travel safe and officiate safe. And if you've got any questions, please don't be afraid to reach out. Thanks for all the comments tonight and the feedback. It's a great collaborative environment. Really do appreciate it. Beneficial for everyone. Good night, everyone.
All right. Thanks, guys.